My name is Rob Wu, and today we actually have a guest speaker from it's guest speaker Dominic from the Hive Digital. Dominic, I met him a few weeks ago, and he's a true expert in SEO strategy. I mean, he's been working for 7 years at Hive Digital, and this agency is amazing. They have just been nominated the best small SEO agency, and that's amazing. They do amazing work not only for nonprofits, but also for for-profits. So they have a really great perspective in terms of how you can leverage SEO for your organization. Dom is the dad of 3 kids. He resides in Boston, not too far away from our offices here in New York, and I'm so excited to have him here today. One of the things I want to share with you before we start, though, is about Cosvox. Cosvox, we're a digital fundraising platform for nonprofits. What we do is we help you raise more with less effort. So less budget, less time, less process. You can just use Cosvox to declutter all the mess of your digital fundraising and to really simplify how you acquire donors, how you retain donors, as well as how you track donors. So you can use Cosvox for everything online. You can use this for donation pages that convert more donors. For example, we just helped one nonprofit, a director of development named Megan, and last year she told me that she only raised $30,000 through her PayPal donate button. But after they used Cosvox for the donation page, they actually raised over $60,000 within that same time period. So she doubled her donations just by switching over to Cosvox. You can also use Cosvox for your peer-to-peer fundraising. Your peer-to-peer fundraising has your personal fundraising pages as well as team fundraising pages. A great way to not only engage your volunteers and supporters, but also a great way to acquire new donors organically without having to spend a lot of money on ad budgets, without having to go through a PR run, and without having to really pull your hair out. You can just easily acquire a lot of donors through peer-to-peer fundraising. I talked to one of our other customers named Kelly, and she told me that after they switched to Cosvox, they raised 51% more funds than before, just through our peer-to-peer fundraising tools to help you streamline and acquire donors. Well, that's a lot about Cosvox. You can use Cosvox for a lot of things. If you want to learn more, you can always go to www.cosvox.com. You can explore our website. You can sign up for a 14-day trial, as well as you can sign up for a one-on-one demo where someone from our team, myself, or my colleagues will be happy to take you through Cosvox, our fundraising tools, our fundraising education, our one-on-one support, anything to help you out in order to help you raise more funds. All right, so back to Dominic over here. So he's going to share with you all a few SEO tips in terms of how you can leverage SEO for your nonprofit, how you can leverage it to raise more funds. And I'm really excited actually to hear all the insights he has to share within our 30 to 40 minutes of time. One note of housekeeping though, is that we will have a duration of time at the end of our presentation for Q&A. So feel free to write down all the questions that you have as Dominic is speaking and prepare those because he's going to love all these questions that you have. And then secondly, this presentation is recorded. So we will be sending out a recording to all of you a day or two after this presentation today. So you can always review some of the insights that have been shared. So look out for that email from me in the next day or two. All right, so without further ado, I just want to pass it to Dominic.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks to everybody out there who has taken a few minutes out of their day to attend this webinar. My name is Dominic Champa. I work for Hive Digital Inc. Like Rob said, father of 3, passionate about being a dad, like music, like running. But digital marketing is my bread and butter, and it's one of the great loves of my life. Hive Digital. I've been at Hive Digital, like I said, 7 years. We are a full-service agency that specializes with working with individuals and companies that are trying to have a positive impact on the world. So a little bit different of a spin for a digital marketing agency. So we work with lots of nonprofits, clients in healthcare, education. We've worked with the Kauffman Foundation in the past. We manage the Human Rights Foundations, paid search campaigns pro bono. We have a bunch of local clients that are for good companies. So, but like Rob mentioned, we've been around for 17 years. So we've worked with virtually clients in all spaces in our time. So located just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, with the exception of myself. Like Rob said, I'm an hour west of Boston. And yeah, we're a relatively small, scrappy team. Moz recommended vendor and just shortlisted by the U.S. Search Awards for Best Small SEO Agency. So today's agenda, we're going to look at common SEO mistakes. These are things that I see day in and day out when I'm speaking to prospective clients. We'll look at some quick wins for SEO. Maybe these are the places that you want to start out if you're thinking about taking on SEO yourselves. And then there'll be a list of resources at the end of this deck for free tools and things that might be good for you to implement and use throughout your business. And then, like Rob said, if there's time, we can jump into a little Q&A session. So SEO, what is SEO? I'm not going to go too in depth here, but SEO is search engine optimization. And how it works is basically like this. Google organizes information about web pages in their index. This index is like an enormous library. When you search for something, Google's algorithm filters through billions of pages of data and delivers what it thinks is the most relevant result to answer the user's query. So how does Google organize this massive information? Search engines, like Google, crawl the web moving from link to link, finding and indexing new pages at an incredible speed. Some estimates that over 300 new websites are created every minute. So as you can imagine, that's an incredible amount of information that Google has to parse and update into their index. So what are the things that Google looks at when determining what a page should rank? There's over 250 different signals that Google looks at. Things like page speed, how fast your site loads, whether it's mobile friendly. They look at the backlinks that are in your backlink profile. They scan and read the content on your site. They look at whether your site's secure. Again, like I said, over 250 different signals. But with all that being said, there's really two facets of SEO. There's on-site SEO and off-site SEO. On-site SEO is SEO that basically you have control of. These are changes that you can make to your site. You can update content on your homepage. You can change a page title. You could compress images to, speed the site up. These are all things that you have control over. Then there's off-site SEO. This is a little more difficult to control, and this references backlinks, when people who have other websites link to your website. The importance there is that Google looks at every one of those votes or every one of those links like a vote. So that is a little more difficult to control and acquire, but we are going to go over a few tips and things you can do to potentially increase your backlink profile as we move through here. So jumping right in here, just wanted to show you this graph, the percentage of people that are using some of these different search engines. As you can imagine, Google is on top, and Bing and Yahoo are not even close. So when I reference search engines today, I'm mostly going to be speaking about Google. So common SEO mistakes. I'm on the phone every day with people, and these are some of the things I hear more often than not. Or I see more often than not. I see unsecured websites, websites that render HTTP as opposed to HTTPS, sites that are missing metadata like heading tags, page titles, canonical tags, duplicate content, seeing multiple versions of a web page on someone's site. I see backlinks that are less than reputable existing in backlink profiles that cause problems for some of our clients. Page speed, and then whether the site's mobile friendly or not. So these are things that I see more often than not when I'm speaking with people. So jumping into HTTP versus HTTPS. This was not a ranking signal a while ago, but recently it has become a ranking signal. Unlike many of Google's algorithms, for this algorithm update, they gave advance notice so people could have time to switch their sites from HTTP to HTTPS. Google basically wants users to have the best possible experience while navigating the web. They also want users to be able to complete transactions safely. Before I provide my credit card information to a website, one of the very first things I do is look to see whether it's HTTPS or if it has one of those security badges like Norton's security badge. You know, it's one of the things that I think donors will look at as well. You know, is the site secure? Do I feel comfortable plugging in my credit card information here? Many platforms like WordPress and Wix, they'll automatically provide you with an SSL certificate, so your site's HTTPS. But there are other platforms like GoDaddy, and I'm drawing a blank on the other, that don't offer it up front, but for a few extra dollars, you can purchase it and have your site be secure. So again, it's a rankings boost in Google's eyes, as well as the fact that the people that are going to donate when they're on your website, you know, are more likely to do so if they feel like their transaction's secure and their credit card information isn't going to be stolen. Here's an example of some of those trust badges that I just mentioned. Again, anything you can do to make your customer, your donor feel safe, you know, I highly recommend doing. So you probably recognize some of these across the web: the VeriSign, Authorize.net, McAfee Secure. These are the things that I look at before I plug in my credit card information. Heading tags, page titles, and meta descriptions. This I see all the time, where basically they're missing, and it's a big problem. Basically, you know, the way that Google knows what your site is about is by crawling and reading this data, you know, and looking at the keywords that are in the metadata as well. You know, Google crawls each website and processes the HTML code on the back end of the site. Metadata, it's information that's super important, and it's something that you have full control over and can change. So some example of metadata, mentioned it before: heading tags, you know, H1, H2, H3, all the way up to H6, page titles, images, the alt text that goes behind the images, meta descriptions. Although meta descriptions aren't a ranking factor in Google, however, from a marketing standpoint, it is that first little blurb of information someone's going to read before they decide to click into your website. So again, not a ranking factor, but if you want to have something that catches the user's attention and pulls them into your site. Meta keywords is another one. Meta keywords used to be a ranking factor, but since SEOs figured that out, they were stuffing meta keywords in the back end of websites, so Google stopped letting it be a ranking factor. Bing, however, still uses them. However, if the meta keyword doesn't match the content of the corresponding page, Bing will actually penalize that page. So I tell people, and it's best practices, if you have meta keywords on your site, they should be removed. So that's all great, but how do we see this information? Where can we gather all of this information to start to assess, you know, where we stand as far as our metadata? Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is a great tool. It is free to download. It lets you crawl up to 500 URLs with the free version. And as you can see here, it gives you a beautiful screenshot of the internal links, external links, you know, response codes, meaning, you know, are all your pages loading, you know, 200? Do you have redirects? You know, what type of redirect? 301s, 302s. It tells you your page titles, meta descriptions, and you can see it right there. But it also, when you click into it, you know, if you were to click into, you know, page titles or click into the H1 tab, it's going to show you which ones are there, which ones are missing, which ones are too short, too long, which ones are duplicate. If it's a duplicate of if the H1 tag is a duplicate of the page title, there's a ton of good information that you can get out of this tool. And again, it's free for up to 500 URLs a pop. I will link to this, or have linked to this at the end of this deck for you to be able to check it out. Duplicate content. This is something I see all the time, and I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death here, but I do want to read this because this is, I think, the best written up definition of duplicate content. It's content that appears on the internet in more than one place. One place is defined as a location with a unique website address. If the same content appears on more than one web address, you've got duplicate content. Now, you won't technically get a penalty for this, but duplicate content can still impact search engine rankings. When there are multiple pieces of, as Google calls it, appreciably similar content in more than one location on the web, it can be difficult for search engines to decide which version is more relevant to a given search query. And I want to focus on that last part. It can be difficult for search engines to decide. When we do SEO, the main thing we want to do is make it as easy as possible for Google to figure out what everything is on our site and what we want it to rank for. So if we have duplicate content on a page, or content that's very similar to another piece of content on your website, Google doesn't know which version is the one it should include or exclude from their index. They don't know whether to direct the link metrics, meaning the links that are pointing to that page, trust, authority, anchor text, link equity to one page, or does Google decide to separate them and split all that authority between the two pages? And they don't know which piece of content they should rank. So it's very problematic. There's a relatively simple solution to handle this. It's called a canonical tag. And best practices is to implement a self-referencing canonical tag on every page of your website. You can see down here at the bottom, that's an example from my company's website, what a canonical tag looks like. And this tag basically tells Google that, hey, there might be another page on HiveDigital.com that has much of the same content for whatever reason, but hey, Google, this is the one that we want the authority to go to. So it's super important. Duplicate content can really be a killer, especially if you got large site with tons of content. So something to definitely consider. Offsite review. So now we're talking backlinks and some of the things that I've seen people get in trouble with in the past. Prior to 2012, search engines were fairly easy to manipulate. Backlinks played a huge part in Google's algorithm. Google would count every backlink pointing to a site as a vote, and that would determine whether a site should rank. SEOs knew this, and of course, started to manipulate the practice. It was easy for an SEO to spin up a website, and then on that website, just dump tens of thousands of links, all pointing to their client site. And then, bam, their client site would rank. But all that changed on April 24th, 2012, when Google released the first Penguin algorithm. Originally, the algorithm was a filter that sat on top of Google's regular algorithm and attempted to catch this type of manipulative linking. The algorithm was refreshed and updated several times up until about September 2016, when Google announced that it was going to begin to run in real time as part of their core algorithm. This Penguin algorithm penalized many sites and hurt lots of companies that had at one point engaged in link building that they thought was okay, and then all of a sudden it wasn't post Penguin. So it cost people lots of money to get their sites re-indexed, put in Google's good graces. Google would hand out these penalties where no matter what, you wouldn't rank past the 5th page until you removed your bad backlinks, or put them in a disavow file, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But that's one of the most common mistakes I hear is people say at some point, I hired an SEO, they built links for me, and we essentially got in trouble with Google. So it's a great idea to pull your link data from whatever sources you have available to you. Like Google Search Console will have a list of links that point to your website. There are also third-party tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush, and again, those will be linked to at the end of the webinar. But you can compile a list of all of your backlinks and go through them and analyze and look for links that look shady. My rule of thumb is if the website looks like it exists for purely SEO purposes, meaning it's just a place where links sit to link out to other websites, it's probably something you want to disavow. And the disavow file is just a way of telling Google, I know this link points to my website, but I don't want credit for it. And we'll touch on that a little bit more when we talk about Google Search Console. So page speed, as you can see, ranking factor since 2010, but about a year ago, it started to become a ranking factor for mobile. And why this is significant is because around that same time, maybe a little earlier, Google switched their index from desktop to mobile, meaning they look at the mobile version of your website before they look at the desktop version of your site. So if you have poor page speed for the mobile version of your site, that's gonna hurt you. In 2018, 58% of all traffic in the U.S. came from mobile devices. So as you can see, mobile friendly is huge as well, and it goes kind of hand in hand with the page speed. You can see on the left-hand side, that's a site that's not mobile friendly. It's hard to read the content, hard to see the image, hard to get to the information box to search for something, and then obviously the one on the right is best practices. Having a mobile friendly site is super, super important. The other thing that you'll want to do, and this isn't necessarily an SEO thing, but if your site is mobile friendly and you have a phone number on your site, make sure that it's clickable. We want to cut down as much friction as possible when we're trying to get, a customer or a donor to complete a transaction. So if they're on their phone looking at your site and you have the ability to just click on a phone number and reach right out to you, then that certainly makes things easy for people. So something else to consider. So here are a couple quick wins for SEO. I'm going to talk about setting up Google Search Console, which was formerly known as Google Webmaster Tools. Talking about Google My Business. We'll go back over metadata as well as what some of the best practices are when you're going through this stuff. And then we'll talk about how we can improve our backlink profile. Since we just got rid of our shady backlinks, now we're going to discuss a couple strategies of how we can acquire backlinks. And then improving existing content we will touch on briefly. So Google Search Console, like I said, previously Webmaster Tools. It is a free tool provided by Google, and it gives you an idea of how Google views your site. There's tons of good information in here. And like I said, it's absolutely free to set up. A couple things you can do in here. You can upload a sitemap in Google Search Console, which you should do if you have not done yet. Basically, how we were talking before in regards to, we want it to be as easy as possible for Google to navigate your website in its entirety as quickly as possible. By uploading a sitemap, you give Google a map to your site of where everything is. Saves them time, saves them headache. It's definitely something you'll want to do if you have Google Search Console set up already. If you don't have Google Search Console set up, I did link to it at the end of the webinar, and you can feel free to click on that and go through the process of setting it up. A couple other things you can do. You can submit a disavow file like we were talking about before. If you find that you've got less than reputable links in your backlink profile, you can upload that into an Excel sheet and then submit a disavow file in Google Search Console. You can also see which keywords people are typing in when they're searching for your site, which is great information to have, especially when we look at optimizing content throughout the site. You also receive notifications about any crawling issues. So maybe you've got pages that all of a sudden are 404ing or breaking. You'll get a notification in Search Console that that's happened. Or maybe you've got some broken links or pages aren't being indexed. There's just a slew of information, and it's definitely worth setting up. And again, totally free, so it's totally worth it. Another thing, I didn't put a slide in here for this, but it kind of goes hand in hand with Google Search Console, is setting up Google Analytics. Again, another free tool. You can see what people are doing when they hit your site. You can see where people are bouncing out, which then can give you some insight into figuring out why people are bouncing out on a certain page. Is it too complicated? Are they not filling out the form? Is the form too long? These are all the kind of things that you can start to figure out if you've got Google Analytics in place. So I've also linked to that at the end of this deck, but definitely set up Google Search Console and Google Analytics. One more thing about Search Console I'll mention, and then I'll move on. When setting this up, you want to set it up for all 4 variations of your website. Now, when I say that, I mean set it up for http.www, http without the W's, https with www, https without www. And what that does is it just ensures that you get data from however somebody came to your website. 'Cause not everybody will always type the correct URL. So we want to capture as much information as possible. Google My Business, another free offering from Google, came out in 2014. A study conducted by the local search association showed that only 44% of businesses had claimed their Google My Business listing. Only 18% had claimed it on Bing. If you've got a brick and mortar location, this is definitely something that you should be doing. The white space on the search engine result pages is so valuable. And if you have an opportunity to eat up some of that space on the right-hand side, like you can see right here, our Google My Business listing, you 100% should do it. You can put your hours, as you can see right there, your address, when you're open, popular times that it's open. You can go directly to the website, see what other people have said about it. You can show pictures of the actual building and logos, and it's just a great way to eat up some space, and it's a really powerful thing for local search as well. And then the other thing, kind of touching on Google Analytics, this is another way to track how people are finding your website. So metadata, we touched on this briefly earlier about not having metadata and the ramifications, but let's talk about metadata here that we do have control over. So like we said before, heading tags, 1 through 6, page titles, meta descriptions, alt text, meta keywords, structured data. Let's take a look at some of this stuff. So Human Rights Foundation, that right there is the page title. Underneath the URL where it says Uniting the World to Stand Against Tyranny, that's their meta description. Okay, you go down further, you can see their H1 tag. Our partners are on the front lines fighting for human rights in the most at-risk countries. Help them change the world. Your H2 tag, other ways to donate. And then they even have a H3 tag here, donate Bitcoin. So they've got all this information filled out. Now, when Google hits their homepage, it knows it's looking at the Human Rights Foundation. It knows that it's trying to bring people together to stand against tyranny. On the front lines, it knows that they want donations and also knows that they accept via Bitcoin. So that's a ton of good information that Google knows just from quickly parsing the very top lines of code on the back end of this site. That being said, your heading tags, your H1 tags here, they should be 20 to 70 characters. That's best practices. Your page title should be no longer than 60 characters. If it's over 60 characters, it's going to get truncated. I'm sure you've seen it where, Human Rights Foundation is and then ... You want to be able to display your entire page title and have it be, a well thought out sentence. Meta descriptions, like I said, not a ranking factor, but they should be under 160 characters or the same thing. They'll get truncated. Image alt text. There isn't, as far as I'm aware, a best practice for length of image alt text, but the image alt text sits underneath the images and lets Google know what that picture is about. Google isn't sophisticated enough to see an image and know that it's a picture of a truck. You actually have to put some text behind it to say, this is a blue truck. And again, that image alt text gives Google context to what other things might be on that page. And again, like I mentioned before, just make sure everything is unique. If your H1 tag is the same as your H2 tag, you're missing out on opportunities to feed Google additional keywords. Backlinks. Backlinks are very, very important. Think of backlinks like a vote. Every vote or every backlink pointing to your site, counts as a vote. Generally speaking, the more of those that you have, the better. And some of them are better than others. For example, a backlink from Forbes.com, is going to be, much more valuable than a backlink from, my personal blog. So it's very, very important. Some SEOs still think that links are king and content is not. That seems to be an argument in our industry. But there are some things worth mentioning before we get into a few different link development strategies. Technically acquiring any backlink or from any means other than it occurring naturally technically violate Google's quality guidelines and can run you the risk of getting in trouble. So things like purchasing links, things like exchanging a product in exchange for a link, or doing like reciprocal linking, where I'll link to you if you link to me. That strategy is a bit antiquated, but again, frowned upon. So when you're doing link development, there is some risk, but it can be done. And I'm going to go over a couple different ways here that you can acquire some low risk backlinks to your site. Local citations. These are great if you have, again, a brick and mortar location. And these citations are basically just phone number, name of your company, address, postal code, and website. You can find them on, here's a picture here of some of the directories that are out there. But if you go to that first link there, moz.com/learn/SEO, citations by category, they do a great job of breaking out all these different citations by category, by industry, basically. And then you can go from there and manually update your information. Or you can use a service like BrightLocal or WhiteSpark, and they basically do the same thing, and they do it for you, and they're relatively inexpensive too. So, and local citations are great for local SEO as well. Links for Good. This is a strategy that our agency uses with a handful of clients. We call it Links for Good, but it's basically a scholarship link strategy where we run an essay contest through one of our clients' websites. We create a page on their site where students will submit essays on whatever topic our client decides. And then our client will judge the entries and pick a winner. And then that winner is awarded a $5,000, $1,000 scholarship. But while that's happening, we reach out to universities in the area of our client and say, we've got a client here that's offering scholarships. Maybe you want to link to it on your resources page. So what will happen is universities will add that link, that scholarship page from our client site, on the university's resources or scholarship page. So it's a really great strategy because you're getting links from .edu sites. You're getting people to write content for your page, and you're giving money to a student, which is great. And then you can, again, let the world know via social media about this great thing that you're doing. So it's good for press. It's, as Michael Scott would say, a win-win-win. And then content is king. I just wanted to briefly touch on this. Content is king, sort of. People feel like because Google has been hammering home that content is king, that they just need to be creating content, every day or blog post every single day. It's not actually true. What you want to do is have content that people actually engage with. If you are adding content that no one is engaging with, it really is just adding bloat to Google's index. It's more stuff that they have to go through and crawl. Ideally, it would be best to have, one awesome piece of content a month that people are interested in and engage with and share and would even want to link to, than just cranking out content just for the sake of cranking out content. So that being said, there are tools on the market that can help optimize content. One of them that I'm very fond of right now is MarketMuse, and there's a link to them at the end of this deck. But MarketMuse is an awesome content optimization tool where you basically plug in your content. It provides keyword recommendations based on semantic language and spits out those keywords that you can then implement throughout the content and will help you rank better. I can't speak highly enough of MarketMuse. It's just a fantastic tool. So that's all I got. I don't know how we are on time, but happy to field any questions.
Thanks, Dominic. I think one of the questions I see here from the audience so far is that Gene asks that what if you use your website and it sits on WordPress? How does SEO affect that?
Yeah, so on WordPress, you should be able to go into the back end and make adjustments fairly simple. There is a plugin called Yoast, and it's spelled Y-O-A-S-T, that I would highly recommend. And it basically, once you install Yoast, it will score your page titles, heading tags, things like that. I think it marks them yellow, orange, or green, yellow, red, I think. So like if you're in the back end there and you're writing a heading tag and it's too long, it's going to flag it as yellow, and that's your way of knowing that, hey, I need to shorten up my H1 tag. But that's a great tool to check out, especially if you're using WordPress.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Another question we have from Stephanie. She asks, why do search engines limit meta description or even page title tags? And yet I see more often these days text well over the limit.
So I missed the first part of the question.
She's asking, why do search engines limit meta description or even the page title tags? I think the character limit is what she's asking.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not entirely sure. It might have to do with the amount of space. If you could just have a meta description that was, 500 words long, you would take up a lot of space on that first page. So maybe that's the reason why. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure, but I'd be more than happy to ask somebody at my agency and get back to you.
Great. Another question from Scott. Scott's asking, what are the best ways to test key phrases or keywords regarding a nonprofit's services?
Test them as far as?
I would assume probably testing for performance, what kind of keywords or key phrases, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So there's a couple different tools you can use. SEMrush is great. You can plug in a keyword or a competitor, and basically it will pull back data on related keywords and the keyword that you're looking for. And it tells you everything as far as search volume, how competitive the term is. If it's synced to your account, it'll tell you where you rank for it. And it also gives you, I think, the paid search metrics as well, as far as like cost per click and things like that. But yeah, any of those tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, they're all pretty robust and have features where you can do some keyword investigating.
Nice. Well, I have a question. So, a lot of the organizations and individuals here today attending this webinar, they may not have like a full-time IT person or a full-time digital marketing person. What's the best way for them to kind of build an SEO into their weekly schedules or monthly schedules? What's like a great workflow that you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that running the business is obviously a job in and of itself, and then taking on the SEO can be a whole nother animal. I think it's just building out a roadmap that will work for the time that's available and prioritizing the things that need to get handled first. So if I was going to build out that map of things that need to get handled first, it would be, let's download Screaming Frog. Let's run that tool and see what we're missing as far as all of our metadata information. And then from there, you'll want to prioritize making changes to your most trafficked pages or your most profitable pages. So, if you see that your home page is missing, H1 tags and H2 tags, that's your first fix. If you know that you've got, 3 or 4 pages that lead to the most donations, but maybe they're missing, metadata, then that's where you should be focusing your effort on trying to beef those up. The other thing you can do is, again, using one of those third-party tools, look for terms that are important to you, where you're sitting in the 11th spot, or maybe even say the 4th spot, and start to build content around those keywords. Because if you can move if you can move one of those terms from the top of page 2 to page 1, the click-through rate is going to be insanely higher. Same from the 4th to the 3rd position. So that might be something else to look at when you're prioritizing your
It
efforts.
sounds like maybe the top priority one is taking a look at, what are your top traffic pages or your most important pages. Maybe using Google Search Console or Analytics to help support that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then making sure your technical SEO, like your H1, H2s, and all that good stuff is in order.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so that would be step 1. And then step 2 then would be taking a look at maybe some of the keywords and how you rank and what you want to rank for.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the opportunities, like 11th, I think, Don, when you mentioned 11th, that means page 2, essentially.
Yeah.
And then 4th just means you get like 4. If you're number 4 in the search ranking, then you get a ton less traffic than 1, 2, and 3.
You do, yes.
Yeah, those are some like low-hanging fruit, essentially, that people can tackle, create content around, and get ranked number 3 to number 2 to number 1.
Yep. And if you've got a competitor, I shouldn't say competitor, but if you've got somebody that's in your same space and they're outranking you for a similar piece of content to what you have, kind of the answer sheet is right there. You need to look at their content and see, what do they have that I don't have? Do they have more images? Do their images have alt text? Do they have a frequently asked questions page? Does their donate button follow the user around while they scroll through the site? But if you can identify what they're doing and you're not doing, then you've got some answers and some things that you can start to implement on your page.
Yep. We probably have maybe 1 or 2 more questions, time for that. So someone's asking, will the recording be sent out? And yes, for those who joined late, the recording will be sent out within the next day or 2 alongside some of these links that Dominic has mentioned through the presentation. Another question we have is Austin is asking, Dom, when you say content that people engage with, does that include the engagement my work gets through social media? He's saying that they don't get a lot of interest or a lot of traffic to their blog, but their social posts get a lot of interest. So
Gotcha.
I guess, how does social play into content and ranking, and where should someone focus their time?
Yeah, social is definitely important. When I was referencing content with little to no user engagement, I was specifically talking about looking at Google Analytics and, taking a look at, pages in the blog that maybe no one's engaged with or nobody's downloading or reading, and then potentially figuring out what you can do with that content to get it out of Google's index. So maybe repurpose it into an ebook that somebody can download in exchange for an email, or combine it with another article that's similar, and maybe that can beef up the rankings for some of those keywords. But as far as the social aspect of it, that's great that you're getting you're getting love on social media, and it's just, is that, I guess, is the question, is it the social media linking to the content, and that's the only way the content's being viewed?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think from our experience, it's great to share on social, so you can get some type of social link, as well as if other people are sharing it, then I think it's an indicator of how strong your content is.
Right.
So one last question that I'm seeing here is video. So how does video play into SEO?
Video is really important. One of the things that we recommend our clients do if they have video on their page is to transcribe it. Because again, Google's not sophisticated enough at this point to be able to play a video and know what the context necessarily is. So if you've got a video on your site, it's a perfect opportunity to transcribe that video and post that content underneath it.
I also think another benefit to just having the video there is, let's say you start with a blank page. Nobody's going to stay on that page.
Right.
You have on a page, you have some content, so people will read it. And then after that, you maybe include some photos because it becomes more readable. And then there's maybe a higher dwell time. And then with the video, adding content becomes even more compelling. So how much does that dwell time, like the time that someone spends on a page, really matter?
It is a significant ranking factor. Absolutely. I don't know the exact metric, but I do know that it is something that they look at. You know, if somebody hits a site and they bounce right away, that bounce rate can negatively affect your SEO. And that kind of plays back to you know, the meta descriptions I was mentioning, you know, not being a ranking factor. But if your meta description isn't well written and doesn't match what's on the content of the page, you know, someone's going to read that meta description, click through, find out it wasn't what they were just sold, and leave right away. So again, by not having a well-written meta description, it can hurt your, you know, your bounces.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe an easy way is just updating your metas, and then with your content, if you have the right assets like photos of your nonprofit programs, or maybe some of the stakeholders that you help, or even board members if you're doing something that's fundraising related, or having some type of video can help increase your rankings on something.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. We're going to end questions with, I guess this is less of a question from Anissa, but Anissa saying, hey, he or she, I'm sorry, probably she listens to a lot of tech type webinars, and this is hands down the most useful one that I have ever sat on. So
awesome.
with that positive quote. So we are done with questions, and I just want to share one last thing, just some housekeeping stuff. Now, this presentation, again, will be sent out after our webinar ends today, the next minute. Our webinar is going to end the next minute, and we'll send it out in the next day or two. You're going to email directly from me, Rob Wu at Cosvox. So look out for that if you're looking for the video and if you're looking for the presentation, as well as all these links to these resources that Dominic shared. And one last thing too, you know, Dominic mentioned something that's really useful. You know, one of the things is around how your donation pages have to be secured, SSL secured. You know, if all goes to my mind, I come across a lot of nonprofit sites today that don't have a secure donation form. So if you're looking for a secure donation form, you know, check out cosvox.com. We can help you with that. If you're looking for a mobile donation form as well, a lot of nonprofits still don't have that. You know, check out cosvox.com. We'll be happy to set you up so you can convert more donors, increase your donations without having to try. Also, this is Dominic's with Hive Digital. So if you're looking for more SEO services, they're a great company. Check them out. I'll send out a link to their website so that all of you today can take advantage of some of their services as well as some of their education. All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. Dominic, thanks so much for your time and expertise. Really appreciate that. And for all the attendees today, thanks for holding on with us. Really love the praise that we've been seeing through the chat as well. And we appreciate the work that you're doing as a nonprofit or a social good enterprise. Thanks so much today. And you all have a great weekend.
Thanks.